So let's talk about, because we talked about breath work being really important to it, but another thing you're really into and you love to do is the ice part of it, the ice work, the cold immersion, as they say. And, I saw a post from Dave Asprey the other day talking about cold immersion. It's not for everyone. Yeah. And I have to agree, because a lot of the people that we deal with, and of course at the medical center, are in a immunocompromised, very, disease state, chronic disease for a number of years. And many of them try to implement biohacks before their bodies are ready for it outside. And that puts their immune system even higher stress levels than it already was weekend. And sometimes it backfires. Yeah. So I want to hear your thoughts before we get into, let's say, the real biohacking of cold immersion. But where is it that you sort of draw the line on how to utilize cold immersion, ice plunges, all of that when you're speaking with clients?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's two prongs to this fork. One is with women. I'm more conservative in general. I think males can tolerate cold exposure. If we're just talking about general population, males can tolerate cold exposure more frequently, if not daily, if they want to. I don't want to. The science is really interesting in the cold exposure world, right? It's all over the map: temperature, type of water, ice, cold showers, frozen river, like all of it. And then lots of men in those studies. And I think that the jury is still out on a lot of it, not all of it. We know it has benefits. But I think because of what I've seen anecdotally, I put over 1,000, almost not over 2,000 people on the ice at this point already, predominantly females. Anecdotally, what I'm seeing, what other female coaches coaching women are seeing, is that there is some dysregulation, especially if you're starting with a hormone dysregulation, that can continue to happen. And so I just say to women, you don't need to go in every day. If the thing is that could be bad, well, let's not do it. Right. Let's start with, and let's also make sure we're not eating McDonald's every day if we're ice plunging, because hey, let's get the baseline stuff right, sleep and food and all that. But cold exposure overall, I'm a fan of, obviously. I'm a little more conservative with women. And I think that there is a case to be made for sure. I think you have a lot more expertise in the area as well, of when your allostatic load, when your stress bucket is full, and that could be with dis-ease, with hyper amounts of stress in your body, some days and some weeks and some parts of your life, maybe not optimal to go, hey, let me get into the cold, because you're just adding an extra layer of stress. I'm going to use this example, and at some point, Joe Rogan's going to hear me talk about this and be like, what's this girl's problem? But I love Joe Rogan, right? I really vibe with that dude energy. That's just, a part of my personality. I think he brings a lot of good to the world. I also think there's a responsibility when you have a platform of 7 million people or more, and globally, to, when you get in an ice bath and you're badass and you got MMA background and you're going to muscle through it, all of that's cool in some way. But when you have a huge platform, to go muscle through 20 minutes in cold, it's not what we're trying to do in cold is minimum effective dose, right? So maybe someone has some disease states where actually ice isn't great for them, and a cold shower, which is much more manageable, is something that they can do 30 seconds, et cetera, and start feeling like they're incorporating that. Joe Rogan, love him. 20 minutes in the ice that's point of diminishing returns. Yeah. It's not minimum effective dose. And I always say this too. If he ever called me and said, get in a tub next to me, let's have a contest, I sure shoot and would. Because that would be a fun adventure race with Joe Rogan. Who wouldn't have fun? And is he eliciting that it's okay to do ice and it can have benefits, and he's spreading the beautiful word of cold exposure? But I want people to not feel like they have to do no, you don't need to do 20 minutes. You could do 3. You do your dose, your specific dose. And that's really important for me, because it's societal pressure and the muscling through of ice in the athlete world that stops a lot of females from wanting to do it because it looks scary. Yeah. And I'm hyper aware of that, because it makes women, men too, I'm sure, but makes women that I'm working with even more nervous to go in the first place. And so it's important to say out loud, the exposure dose only needs to be what you need. And that's something you have to feel out and work with your doctor if you have some conditions. But I do also want to say, and this is, there isn't a lot of research around this, but we watch people with some autoimmune conditions, those of us who are in the cold coaching world, it be in sort of a stage of the game where they're like, I don't have nowhere else to turn. I have Hashimoto's. I have, various different things, even with Raynaud's. Is that how you pronounce it? Raynaud's, the circulatory. Yep. Western doctors and many people, and quite often I'm like, you need to talk to your doctor first, but we're not advising that because it's could be dangerous. But there are people that are deciding in their own sovereignty to say, look, I'm going to try ice exposure, cold exposure, ice baths to see of their own volition. And they're actually, I would never use the word cure, but I would say they are mitigating symptoms and seeing big benefit, especially females. We're seeing so many females show up. I'm sure you see this all the time. Autoimmune used to be like an exception, and now it's the rule. Like women show up to me at least half the time with some autoimmune diagnosis. And so I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I do think that there are some things in the upregulation of your cellular health that can help that from the ice bath. So, I'm always cautious. Like, I hope that you appreciate that as someone who's, in medicine, that I'm cautious with it, but I do think it is a fantastic tool. And I ice bath 2 to 3 times a week. I have one here. And I see a lot of tremendous benefit.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly beneficial. But as you said, things like Joe Rogan, where we take on this bravado as more is better, is not necessarily true at all. And a lot of times more is worse, right? It's not, the body can't take it. It's a stressor. You put it in too much stress. Yes, you could train yourself over time, but for so many, that's not going to be beneficial, especially for anyone who's in a disease state again. And unfortunately, not everyone is Joe Rogan. Not everyone is, in a biohacking state where they're optimized their health. About 80% of us are chronically ill. Those are the facts. They go into an ice plunge for 20 minutes. They come out with pneumonia sometimes. Yeah. Like, that's the truth sometimes. But you can get yourself there. It's just inch by inch go there. Try a hot, cold shower at first.
Yeah.
That's totally great for lymphatic drainage anyway. And don't go too cold, right? Just go a little cold, you'll feel it. And then go hot. That's wonderful. ANS regulation, lymphatic drainage. That's great. We recommend doing that.